Hi everybody, this is Adithya Raam Sankar. Welcome to CloudWorld, and this is a session on multi-cloud cost management, where we'll talk about Oracle third-party and custom tools that you can use to manage your environments. I'm Adithya Raam Sankar. I'm a senior product manager in the Oracle Cloud Platform team, where I work with cost management tools, tagging, compartments, and a few other products. Today we'll look at what is multi-cloud environment. Then we'll go into details of how to best manage it, what are the things that you should take care of when you set up a multi-cloud environment. Then we'll look at some cost reporting tools that are available within Oracle Cloud and compare it against other cloud providers as well, so that you understand how close these are and how you can best utilize them together. Next, we'll look at specific details about how you can do multi-cloud cost management and also have a single view of all cost and reporting in one place. First, about multi-cloud environments. Statistics from Flexera State of the Cloud report says that 89% of organizations have a multi-cloud approach. Since this is a staggering number, it's important to understand what multi-cloud actually is and figure out if you are using a multi-cloud approach or not. The definition of multi-cloud environment is very simple. If you have more than one cloud environment, you have a multi-cloud environment. But I think next step is to understand what cloud environment actually is so that you know whether you have a multi-cloud environment or not. So there are two types of things. One is the publicly available cloud providers that give you infrastructure to use on the fly. And you also have private cloud, which you might have within your data center that has resources, applications, and everything else. Any combination of these would give you a multi-cloud environment. You might be using multiple public clouds from different providers, or use a public cloud along with your own private data center that you might have. So in either of these scenarios, it's important to have unified reporting, consistent setups, consistent metadata that helps you understand your setup environment as a whole, rather than having siloed information from different places. So next we look at some of the top factors that you need to consider when you build a multi-cloud environment. First is the availability of services. You might choose different providers depending on the types or different services that you get. You can use a variety of providers depending on performance and security as well, in terms of who gives the best service for one particular scenario that you might have. Next is location and infrastructure. It's important when you have a multi-cloud setup, these are located in fairly close proximity, so that when it comes to network connectivity, it is seamless and it is less latent as well. And overall, at the end, it's going to be cost management, where you get the best from everywhere, and you need to understand how your spending looks like in different places. So what happens when you have a multi-cloud setup and you are not cognizant of this from the beginning, and what happens when it comes to reporting? The first thing that can happen is data silos. You get different details, different reports from different places, and you don't have a single place to look at all of this. So you might get invoices from multiple providers. You might get cost information, utilization information from different people in different ways, different file formats, for example. The important thing is to make sure you are aware of this and bring it all together so that you can look at it in one place. Otherwise, you're going to lose information in different places and not get a holistic view. Next comes the underutilized resources. When you have things that are happening in different places, it's important to keep a tab on them all along so that you use all the resources to their optimum and not waste usage, even though your number of resources might be smaller. Next, when you don't have this holistic view, it's very possible that you might overspend your budget. You might go over what you projected, what you expected, maybe at the end of the month when you get an invoice or at the end of the quarter. And it's easy to oversee or miss all of this when you don't have it in a single place. So what do we do now that we know all of these problems can occur in a multi-cloud environment? What are the best practices that you can follow to make sure your management of these resources becomes simpler? First, I want to introduce the FinOps framework. FinOps is a financial management discipline and a practice that's coming up and evolving throughout the cloud ecosystem. It has three different phases. It emphasizes on working in different phases so that you can come back and iterate rather than waiting for a one-stop amazing solution. So first, what you do is inform yourself. You get the visibility of all resources that you have and all the utilization so that you can understand their allocation, their usage, and their cost as well. Once you know that information, it's important to optimize in both fronts, rates as well as usage. You need to make sure all your resources are being utilized to their optimum, as well as the cost is kept at a minimum. Then you operate on all of these understanding and make it into a practice and educate all your engineering teams to best use cloud environments. And then you go back. Once you have set up this in motion, you get the data again and find out new areas where you can improve and optimize and operate. For this process to be executed in the best way possible, it's important to have a centralized team that drives FinOps. This team basically understands everything on a holistic basis and works with engineering teams and service teams and development teams and also executive teams as needed to bring it all together and have a uniform or a good FinOps workflow possible for your environment. That's best for your environment. And this team also helps in making decisions based on the value of cloud rather than just looking at cost, looking at infrastructure, or looking at engineering in separate fashions. So this unified team brings it all together, identifies the value, identifies areas of improvement, and works with different teams to make it better. Next, you have the cloud features itself. Like different cloud providers have a lot of tools that help you in becoming optimized, becoming consistent within their environment, as well as match it with other environments that you might have. First thing is compartments and tagging. Compartments and tagging help you in grouping logical resources together so that you have a better handle on who gets access to what, as well as how things are being costed, priced, and everything like that. So it's really, really important to set up this grouping to be consistent across cloud environments, whatever the different providers might call it, so that when you do reporting, you can look at it at the same level of grouping at different places to bring it together and have a consolidated view, have a total cost or total or best utilization report from multiple providers. And as I was saying that, it's important to connect between different providers. What are the common things? What are the differences? What do each providers call the same thing? For example, compartments might be called differently in different places. It's important to understand that connection so that you can implement this logical grouping better and have a unified setup or a consistent setup across different providers. Then you have to implement automation, be it setting up of resources or be it using like auto scaling to automatically expand whenever peak time occurs it's important to set up this automation so that this peak usage and high amount of resources is existing only when peak your utilization occurs, and not when you don't need it. So when you set up something like auto scaling, it will gradually scale up your resources as more requests start coming in, and it will also scale back down when it is not needed. So that way you're already utilizing the best or in the most optimal way of all the resources, and you don't have to like think about wastage and things like that, or even keep the full resource up and running all through the time, irrespective of what the utilization is. So these are things that you can keep in mind to make sure you have consistency as well as have optimization implemented in the best possible way. Okay, let's switch a little bit of gears and go into cost reporting tools. We'll first look at what's available on Oracle Cloud Console, and then go into understanding how these compare with other providers. First thing on the cost analysis front within the console is the cost analysis page itself. This helps you to create ad hoc queries. You can save these queries and come back to them later. You can have non-time series analysis as well. And you can look at it in different slicing and dicing mechanisms to understand your cost in best ways. One of the things that I said earlier was about compartments and tagging. So you can select a particular compartment, or you can group by different tags in order to get different ways of visualizing the cost data for your Oracle Cloud environment. Similarly, a group of these charts or multiple charts of the same type can be brought together in what we call as a cost dashboard, which is also available natively on the console to look at a different slicing dicing mechanisms within a single page. You can just scroll through or click through to see cost as a daily chart, as a compartment level grouping chart, or even see how different types of resources are being utilized. So this can be brought together in a single page in the cost dashboard so that you can get a better view of your own data. Next is the cost and usage reports. These are CSV files that are pretty standard across the cloud providers to give in-depth, detailed, and resource level, highly granular information, data that you can use to do automated analysis or even ingest it into your own system and extend it for however way you visualize. So these have, as I said, resource level and hourly data that you can extend and have a better visibility. You can also put it into different analytics tools, build fancy charts, and look at it all together. So now let's see how all of these tools compare with the different cloud providers. On the first column, we have Oracle Cloud, which are the three things that we already saw, and how it looks like in different providers. As you can see, the cost analysis and cost reports are pretty standard across all providers, and you can get a better view by bringing all of this together if you have different environments. So that is the important factor to understand here, that there is so much of commonness between providers, and it's easy to bring all the data together. Okay, how can you bring the data together? So how do you do multi-cloud cost management when you have multiple cloud providers, or even if you have on-prem or your own data center private cloud setup? How do you make sure that data is visualized along with the others as well? We have three options here. So one is Oracle provided tools. We have different, I'll talk about this in a little bit, but we have tools that help you understand costs without leaving cloud providers, for example. Next, you have third-party cost management tools. These third-party tools bring in cost data from all different places and show it to you in a single unified fashion. They also help you understand optimization options and how you can best utilize resources so that you can keep your costs to a minimum as well. Then you always have the option of building homegrown tools with the cost reports that I mentioned earlier. One functionality that we have launched along with the Oracle Database for Azure capability is cost analysis. From within your Oracle Database for Azure portal, you can look at how much of the spend has occurred on Oracle Cloud and understand basic details about what is the type of account you have, when is it expiring, is it active, how many days are remaining, how much cloud credits are remaining if you have a commitment, and things like that. And you can always go to cost analysis page that I showed earlier within Oracle Cloud Console in order to understand the details and mechanisms behind this as well. Next, we have third-party providers. Third-party cost management tools, as I said, bring in data from multiple sources and show you in a unified way. You can slice and dice them, you can connect them, you can understand a holistic picture within one place. We already have integrations with Cloud Health and Flexera, and we have more coming soon in the near future. So these will help you have consistent reports created across cloud providers since they manage it all together. Lastly, I want to present an architecture that can help you build a homegrown tool to visualize all these costs together. As I mentioned, the primary data source is going to be the cost reports, since they are available across all providers in different ways. You can bring all those data together into one data warehousing solution. Here, for example, the Oracle Autonomous Database, and set it up in such a way that the data model is very similar between the providers, and you are bringing in consistency from the different formats that each of these may use. When I say different formats, it's also about different columns, different metadata that might be coming in. Along with all of these cost reports, you can also bring in other data. For example, budgets, resource information, and any other like ownership information, your company structure or anything like that, to enhance the cost data that you have in the data warehouse now. Once you do this, you can extend it to analytics solutions, for example, Oracle Analytics Cloud, and have a consistent place to slice and dice all of this. Now that you have not just the cost reports, but also additional information, it's possible to track consumption across the budgets that you have or across the commitments that you might have, and bring it all together in a single visualization. I've provided a couple of examples here in terms of what kinds of dashboards you can build. You can have unified cost, how much you have spent in total, how you have spent them across regions, across compartments, across projects, across different applications that you might have built. And also look at them in a per resource basis. How many of them are active? How many of them are decommissioned? How many of them have been deleted? What are the types of compute shapes you have? And different metadata like that, as I said. So as you bring in more metadata, the more informed or the more detailed this dashboard is going to get. And you're free to play with it as it's a self-service analytics tool. You can build all the charts that you need on a regular basis and come back and refer to it rather than worrying about how to bring the data every month. We are towards the end of the session. I would like to recap what we looked at today. We spoke about what multi-cloud environments are, what are the best practices to set up a multi-cloud environment. Then we talked about all the cost reporting tools. How do they compare across providers? How can you bring it together? Then we looked at different options for multi-cloud cost management, where you can either use Oracle provided tools or third-party tools, or even build your own, extending on what on the cost reporting mechanism or tools that we have built natively. Thank you very much for coming to CloudWorld. And once again, this is Adithya Raam Sankar. Hope to talk to you soon. Thank you.